So I was answering. I had an interview this week. It was a written interview about the new book, and one of the questions on the interview opened up by insinuating that I was well read. That this interviewer picked up in the book that I had read a lot, and the question was, how has my reading helped me with my own running and with my own life? And it was a very interesting question. I had to think about it a lot. But it also made me remember I haven't really talked to this group yet about the value of reading about our sport. So I wanted to bring a book. How many of you have read Duel in the Sun? I read one. Anybody? Okay, so Duel in the Sun is about the most epic Boston Marathon ever. It was 1982, and Alberto Salazar and Dick Beardsley ran stride for stride for the entire race, and ended up finishing 2 seconds apart. And in 1982, Americans dominated the world of distance running. It wasn't like it is today. Right? The best runners in the world were Americans. Frank Shorter had won a gold medal in the Olympics in the 70s and came back and won a silver medal. And it was the era of Steve Prefontaine, Bill Rogers, and just a host of great American runners. And if you go back in history and read all of that, you really get an appreciation for this sport that you're participating in. And one of the reasons I love this book, not only does it detail this epic race, but it talks about their lives afterwards. And their lives might not be what you would have expected them to be. Most of us think that if we could reach the pinnacle of success, however we define it, life would be pretty good after that. Well, it wasn't. There was a lot of hardship in both of their lives, and this book really details that. So the other point I wanted to make, and I'll start with another question, how many of you have heard the name Terry Baker?
Well, it's not the same.
So Terry Baker, in the same race that this book is about, finished 7th at the Boston Marathon in 1982. Terry has lived his entire life in Washington County, Maryland. At the time, there was a whole group of great distance runners. Again, if you study the history, you realize that a very short drive from here was this generation of great runners, many of whom I ran against in my prime, looking at their back. But Terry Baker was one of them. And prior to this race at Cherry Blossom, everybody knows Cherry Blossom, right? And the last mile in 1982, Terry Baker is running next to Bill Rogers. Everybody know who Bill Rogers is? Yeah. Bill Rogers had won Cherry Blossom 4 years in a row. He won Boston 4 times, New York 4 times. And Terry Baker is running next to Bill Rogers in the lead at Cherry Blossom, 30-mile-an-hour headwinds, and Baker outsprints Bill Rogers. 2 weeks later, he finishes 7th at Boston. Later in the same year, he breaks Frank Shorter's American record at 15 miles. The guy lives 2 hours away. Here's what you need to know about Terry. He grew up in near poverty. Neither of his parents graduated from high school. Has 5 siblings. None of them graduated from high school. He's the only brother that didn't spend time in jail. In high school, we ran a 4:24 mile, graduated from high school. But at the time, 424 wasn't great. It was the era of greatness, and 424 got overlooked. He didn't get recruited by colleges. So he went to Hagerstown Community College, won 2 national titles, then went to Auburn and ran a 10K time that stood as their school record for 29 years. And this was a guy that lived in poverty in his childhood. Okay, so here's the story, or what I want you to hear and what I want you to take from this season. First of all, great success, the benefits of it, it doesn't last. 2, hardship can be overcome, right? What ultimately defines you is how you handle both. How do you handle the success and the failure, keep it all in perspective, and keep moving forward? And the cool thing about this season, one of the cool things to me, is that it's this microcosm of that. Right? The person that finished first in the handicap rankings at the 10K, and the person that finished last in the same rankings could very easily flip-flop in the next race because of the way the handicaps work. Okay? So, and the great thing about the handicapping is every race, there's always a distraction. not in every race, in every speech. In every race, you have an opportunity to come into it with a fresh approach because you have a great chance of success, an equal chance of everybody else.